Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Mukah Ispahani. I'm a visual artist, and I'd like to welcome you to this podcast, Stories Behind the Faces. And today I'm here with a very important and a very special guest. Her name is Christine Glory. Christine Glory is an author, a speaker, and advocate for resilience and healing. She is best known for her memoir, Outrunning Fear, which chronicles her harrowing escape from the Lord's Resistance Army and her journey from war-torn Uganda to a new life in Europe. Despite facing immense challenges, Christine has emerged as a powerful voice of hope, sharing her story to inspire others to overcome adversity and fear. Today, she continues to speak and write about resilience, faith, and the power of personal transformation. Hello, Christine. How are you today?
Hello, Ispani. I'm fine, thank you.
Oh, glad to have you.
Yes.
I hope I did proper justice to your introduction.
You did amazing. Thank you.
Okay.
You did amazing. Yes.
All right. So to all of our audience, to our audience watching, would you like to, in your own words,
Okay.
share with our audience who Christine is?
Yes, I'll be glad. So my name is Christine Glory, and as Ispani has lovely introduced me, I'm an author. I'm also a speaker and a mentor and coach. Now I use my life story to speak to about my life experience, about what I've overcome over the years, and really just to encourage, to inspire, and to let people know that in life challenges will come your way, but for me what matters most is how you respond to those life challenges and how you navigate. So I will be sharing with you how I have overcome those, and the challenges, the adversities that I've faced over the years. So yes, I'm looking forward to sharing that with you today. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
that's so wonderful.
Yes.
I'm already very excited. When I read about your story, as a matter of fact, I got your book here, Outrunning Fear by Christine Glory, and I think this book was released in 2022.
Yes,
And it's very inspiring. It talks about your story, growing up in Uganda, being born in Uganda,
that's
um,
right.
in that side, in a war-torn area, and going through all the challenges,
Yes.
and so one of the things we do with this podcast is that we capture stories behind inspiring individuals, people with stories that can bless others. And so today I'm going to be capturing an essence of your story on my paper as a visual artist. And hopefully, this podcast will go as an inspiration to somebody out there watching. And so let's get right to it, Christine.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, I'm so excited.
Me
And
too.
so I'd like us to start off with, a background story. I like our audience. I'm sure our audience would like to know a bit more about your early life in Uganda. And so, can you tell us, about the experiences you went through growing up, right from the beginning in Uganda,
Okay.
and and I think from your book you spoke about the conflicts, that was going on, and
Yes.
so can you just tell us about your early life, growing up in Uganda, and some of the things that you learned, the things you experienced, during that conflict.
Okay, thank you very much. So my early life really began in 1987.
Okay.
So I was born. Actually, I was born in the midst of conflict, in the midst of the war that
The
was
war.
going on between the Lord's Resistance Army,
Yes.
and really this war came about because there was a rebellion against the Ugandan government at the time.
Okay.
So I happened to be born on that very moment of that conflict. Now, the day that I was born, believe it or not, it was barely three hours of me being born.
Wow.
My village
Okay.
in Uganda, the village I was born in Uganda, was attacked, and literally my mom had to, my mom and my dad literally had to escape, flee the village into the bush, and literally just run as far as possible. So going, since she had just given birth like couple hours, so imagine a newborn baby. Normally a newborn baby is supposed to, be inside, nurtured, but here's me, Christine, on the run with her mom and her dad.
Oh yes.
And so really, my parents then, protecting me. And so that was that was how my encounter from being born. Now, my childhood, in terms of, I spent majority of my childhood running for my life, escaping the terror of the Lord's Resistance Army.
Yes.
Yes. So I will just tell you a bit more about the Lord's Resistance Army. Now, the Lord's Resistance Army, they are a Christian extremist, and they call them they're a group, which they believe that they're doing justice for. I don't know what kind of justice, but they believe that they're doing something good. So particularly they abduct children. And train them for to be child soldiers.
Okay.
Now, if you are female, you are then recruited and also abducted, and even used for sex slaves. And so really, when you as a child, if they take your child or if you are abducted, there's no way of you returning. There's no way, and so. That was my life. That was what I knew from the time I was born up to the age of 12 years old. I don't know if you want me to go furthermore, or I'm jumping ahead because I don't want to.
Wow, that's perfect, because I just wanted the audience to get a background.
Okay.
Because I mean, what you went through was really very difficult. I mean, growing up in that area, in that war, stricken zone, where you have this extremist group abducting children, and I think one of the things you said was that you were born in the midst of war.
Yes.
You were conceived in the midst of war, and you mentioned something that you were born at home.
Yes.
And your grandmom had to assist your mom in giving birth to you.
Yes.
And that must have been a very difficult situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
For them, but just a baby.
Oh yes, yes.
So yeah, but that was the tradition at the time, and
Okay.
the hospital was quite far away. So
Oh, yeah.
So I just had to. And that was at 2 a.m. in the morning. So to be honest, hospital at that time was not.
So how did you and your family handle this fear? With all the things that were going on. So how did your family and the villagers, in that local community, how did they handle the fear, of this situation?
The thing is, if that's all you know, because
Yes.
that's my life, and that's my parents' life. So you just, because you're born into that, because that's all you know. You just learn to adapt. You learn to survive. You learn to build within yourself that it becomes like, for me it becomes like a norms, because that's all you know. And so if it's not like we had my parents had experienced something else outside, but it's that's what they knew. So the norms is that if they attacked, you run, and if you don't run, then you die. So the neighbors, obviously we lost quite a amount of neighbors that were killed, the houses were burned, and you witness all these things. And even after you've fled for your life, you come back and you have to pick up the pieces. You find that people are missing, and so the entire community, the entire village goes through that process of mourning and rebuilding again. So every time we were attacked, we had to rebuild our lives. We had to rebuild each other as a community, regroup, and just we just had to face that fear.
Oh, that's right.
Because we had no help that was coming forth, and since that is children killing children, it's then it becomes difficult for any intervention in terms of because the children is quite delicate to intervene. So for us as a community, we just learn to rebuild and to keep having faith that things will get better as a community. So yes.
Wow. That's interesting. So I'd like you to describe, can you describe the night where you fled from the LRA? That's the Lord Resistance Army.
Yes.
So that night, I'd like our audience to get the story. So how was that night? How did it look like? When they attacked and you had to flee your home.
Ooh.
You know.
So I've had many encounters, but I want to share this particular one that I had traveled actually. I had traveled out of the country, and I came back, and I wasn't used to that much on running that much. So I literally came back from the airport straight to my village, and as I felt something was not quite right. So you always prepared a backpack because
Oh, yes.
anytime it's war, anytime something could happen. So I was always prepared. So nothing was unpacked for me. I even still had my passport on my neck, ready. Cause
Oh, you had your passport on your neck.
on my neck, because anytime, once if a bomb dropped, you
Oh,
just
yeah.
had to, you
Wow.
just had to. So that night, I remember sleeping with my passport on my neck, and then around 3 a.m. or so, still dark.
Yes.
And just heard footsteps, like people just running. My mom then had my dad wasn't there at the time, but it was just my mom and my siblings. So that night I had to, from hearing the footstep, my mom came and woke me up, and then the next minute we heard gunshots. The next minute I just literally just had to grab my little sister and run, and just run and run. And my mom was next to me at some stage. We just kept running. Now, as I was running, some people got hit with bullets,
Oh.
and they dropped down, and obviously I'm sure they died.
Like you watch people drop
like,
down and die.
Yes, like next to you, and you think
Wow.
that could have been me.
Wow.
And so you just keep running, and so I just developed that, and in training, you kind of you just I watch, like for me, I watch a lot of army thing, and I watch the army get when they're training,
Yes.
how they get on the floor. So when bullets are firing, I had to go on the ground and literally just walk through and literally just crawl with my sister on my back. And so that night we ran, and at some stage I was separated from my mom. So I found myself alone. I found myself in the midst of strangers, in the midst of people all running, and I wasn't thinking, oh, where's my mom? I wasn't thinking that, oh, this. I was just thinking that, look, I've just survived, and I've just missed it, and you have no food, you have nothing. So for days, you're on the run, and you're still hearing gunshot, you're still hearing bombs, you're still hearing, and more people are still coming, and then you're also hearing that a lot of children my age at the time was abducted.
Yeah.
And so that was really that was very a very difficult moment, because I then understood, whereby before I was just a child, like a little bit, like I was being carried. So, but this time I actually experienced that terror, and apart from running, the Lord's Resistance Army, where I live is typically right in the jungle. So you
Oh.
have snakes, you have lions. So literally, it's not far. It's like going to a zoo, but it's not a zoo. It's going to their territory.
So you have like you had cases where snakes will bite people in your
Oh
village,
yes,
and
yes.
have all those sorts of attacks.
Yes, you have snakes, you had lion, elephants,
Yeah.
because my village is very, very rural. It's a place where there's no electricity, like, so it's just a typical village, basically. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so during these times of difficulties and war, during all these attacks, so what were some of the things that your community did as a whole to protect each other, to help each other? I'm sure there must have been some measures that have been put in place, to, prepare for these events.
Yes. I mean, in terms of, like I said, every time we were attacked,
Yes.
things were destroyed. Our lively stocks, our community relied a lot on produce,
Oh.
crops, that they farmed, that they labored for. So most of the time they will come home and all these things are destroyed. So as a community we'll come back together, and where one is lacking, we then help. We then come together, and so that one family doesn't starve to death or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we just had to, as a community, rebuild. We had no control of when the attack is going to happen. We didn't know but what helped us is that we kept on rebuilding each other. Like I mentioned that we prepared ourselves in terms of, so that our children, the children were not abducted as previously they've been. And schooling was quite tough, because any moment you could be attacked. So as a community, I just believe at the time everybody just pulled their weight together and was prepared and ready in case, like I said, you had to pack your bag already ready, so that you can just carry what you packed and go. And also the community we were very like close knitted. Okay. And so we the communication, so we always had a sense if something's gonna happen. Like there was one time they had planned to attack a school. Now that week, the week leading to that, you hear little gossip there that, oh, there might be an attack, because there was a nearby village that was attacked. So for me, I like to pay attention to things like that. And I would normally go to my mom and say, Mom, have you heard? And my mom's like, Christine, you and hearing stuff, can you not be hearing stuff? And I said, but Mom, prepare yourself, Yeah. So on this particular day, I was meant to go to school, and I just didn't feel well, and for no apparent reason. So my mom was like, are you trying to escape school? Are you not feeling well? I was, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I just literally told her I'm not feeling well. And hours from then on, we just saw smoke burning in the school, attacked. They killed and abduct most of the children. Hardly there was anyone that survived. And when I think about it, that could have been me. If had I said, okay, I'm going to go to school that day, I don't think I'll be here speaking to you today. Oh, yeah. Because our neighbors' children went and they're no more. And so they were among the teachers. They were all killed, and some were abducted. So yes, and I think there was only one that came back, that managed to escape. A neighbor child of ours that came. And now when they came, they had missing nose, missing hands.
Missing hands, like the hands were chopped off.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you take in this information? Like, how did you process it? I mean, seeing this kind of crazy things, as a child, how did you process it?
Like I said,
yes,
it became normal.
It became a norm, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what you are born into.
Yes.
So for me, it was normal. It was like, oh, even though I was scared, But for me, it was just normal.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's another time. It's just like another event, another now to see. It's not the first time seeing somebody killed or losing somebody. So it kind of becomes normal for me. Yeah, at the time.
Wow. And one of the reasons why I want our viewers to hear the story is because sometimes we see people doing things and we don't understand the story. There's a saying that if you see a successful man, don't just look at what he or she has, but what did he or she go through to get to that point. And that's one of the things that I'm getting from your story. I mean, these struggles have actually, I'm sure it has formed you, into the person you are today. And so at what point, I mean, here we are, currently in the United Kingdom. And so obviously you had to move out of your village. So at what point did your parents, say, okay, this is the time. I mean, we have to do everything in our power to get Christine out of here. So at what point did your parents make that decision? And can you just narrate that process, that time, and how you were able to, travel, from that area
Yes.
into Europe?
Okay. So to be honest, I call myself one of the blessed one to be given the opportunity. So for me, the opportunity came through my aunt,
Okay.
who also has her story is also similar to mine.
Oh.
Who in the 1970s she escaped the Idi Amin regime attack.
Was it still in Uganda?
No, the time, no, that was
Okay.
that was in the 1970s.
Or 1970s?
Yeah,
Okay.
she too escaped, and so that's how she ended up in Europe.
Okay.
And so the time now came that obviously, she, my dad and our cousins, first cousins,
Yes.
and because of the enormous help that he was doing for her, she didn't ask, so, do you have a child or that I can help, I can assist, and things like that. And I happened to be the first child of my family at the time, so then that's how I was. Then the opportunity then came to say, oh, okay, let me, if I can sponsor Christine, if I can sponsor your first child out of that place. So I was the only one that left that environment. My family were still there in that war zone, in that terror, in that. So even though that opportunity came, that okay, I'm to go. So my parents obviously saw that as a great opportunity, because that means then, their guarantee of my safety, their guarantee that, their daughter, at least can get a better life, and, and can get a better education and exposure. So for me, that was how I got the opportunity to come to Europe. So the first country that I actually went, because my auntie was residing in Germany, so that's the first country I went was Germany. And now Germany at the time is not very, very friendly in terms of, how can I put it, there's a bit of racial, but I didn't really end up settling in Germany. So I was back and forth. So I went, eventually I would go back to Uganda for some time, and then my aunt then decided to move to the UK. And from moving to the UK, then that's how I found myself again. She reinvited me to come back to the UK and to live, to stay with her. So that's how I found myself in the UK, through my auntie's help and sponsorship. And yes, so bear in mind, bear in mind all this time, Germany wasn't, at that time, it wasn't an English speaking country. So it's Dutch, so you have to learn Dutch. I didn't learn any Dutch because it's quite tough. It's quite tough.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And as I mentioned before, that I didn't really had time to start school or anything like that.
Okay.
So my schooling really started at the age of 12, when I escaped that environment. So my schooling started here in the UK.
Okay.
Yes.
So before you go ahead with that, sometimes we see a lot of immigrants, people moving from their home into different countries, and we don't really know the story behind. I mean, I think I can relate slightly. Well, I didn't go through the kind of hardship you went through back at home,
Yeah.
but I can relate because back in my home country, there was sort of like a civil war, which I don't want to go into much detail. But seeing that your family was able to come together and do everything possible, and even with the help of your aunt, to make sure that you leave this zone, that area, because of course you can't grow in an environment that is filled with that kind of hardship. I mean, how can you excel in that kind of environment? Sometimes you just
Impossible.
have to move and go to another place. And of course, we are happy that you're able to move, because I mean, without that, we wouldn't have been hearing this testimony and this story that you have to say today. Yeah. And so can you talk about your experience, let's say the during the first year when you moved to Europe, first Germany, how did you cope in this new environment? I mean, it's a different culture. I mean, growing from this Uganda zone and then moving to Europe, meeting a new set of people, a new language, and all of that. So, how did you cope with this new, place that you found yourself?
Okay. So for me, I think I've always been that kind of person from my childhood. I think I just, I was just going like with the flow. I don't know, like, because when you're a child,
Oh yeah.
it's like, for me, it was like an adventure. It's like, oh, I'm going on an adventure. And for me, I was excited in terms of like, oh, I get to, I'm no longer in that place. So my experience, is just, I was able to just embrace
Okay.
what was happening. And in terms of how how I'm just integrated. I think as a child, you can. For me, I found myself I was easily adaptable, adapted. I could adapt to my environment.
Okay.
Even though I didn't know my auntie, like, because I had to literally know more about her and learn about her. So for me, it was an adventure, and I just had no fear. Like, I was just looking my eye. I would look in your eye like this as a child, and I just,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had zero fear, and I just don't know where
I
that
mean, how can you
braveness
have
come
fear?
from.
You've grown in a place where, I mean, they chop people's hands off, and so what else can scare you?
Exactly. So yeah. So for me, yes, I just now integrating. Obviously, the language. Being in Germany, the language. I struggled with the language,
Okay.
and but that didn't stop me. It didn't stop me from going and playing or doing things as a child, like a normal child was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Now, in the UK, on the other hand, now I had to go to school. Now, having my strong African accent, oh, I face it.
Oh
I
yes.
faced bullied again. Bullying didn't really stop me. It's very, if you try to bully me too, I'll get you back. So I know how to defend myself. So it's not like, oh, I'll just let you run over me. No, no way.
So should we say it was some sort of racism as a result of your color? That you received this sort of treatment in school.
So in Germany, yes,
Okay.
yes, in Germany, yeah, definitely. I knew there was a distinction because I'm coming from a country where I'm seeing everyone with the same color tone,
Yes.
and then going to places like, okay, it's my first time. It's my first time seeing like white people. That was the first
Ah,
time.
okay.
Yeah, so I was always intrigued.
Yeah.
Like, oh, just like they would be intrigued with, like, oh, I would occasionally get someone touch my hair, touch my skin tone. For me, I didn't get any angry. I didn't get angry or anything like that. But I came to realize that when I went out, that's when I was treated different. But as a child, you don't really know that thing.
Oh.
As that child, I didn't really take that to heart at all. Um, so as a child, you don't really see that when you're a child.
So when you got to Germany and you were in school, So like, the other white kids, they'll find you fascinating. Like, oh, who
Yes.
is this? Who is
I'll be
this?
touched. Somebody will be touching my hair, touching my
Oh,
skin.
interesting.
Yes, and me too. I'll be also touching back as well.
Yeah,
I want
because
to know.
you mentioned that in your book.
Yes.
Where you said there was intervention from the United Nations back at home where they'll
Yes.
bring like a food aid, and even though it wasn't enough, and you said all the kids, they were so
Oh
fascinated with
yes.
the men, the people who came,
Yes.
and they were like they'll try to touch them and and those sort of things.
Yes.
Wow, interesting.
Yes.